Hello, my name's Maria Service. I am a spiritual mentor, subconscious, and past life healer. And I am excited to be going live today with Elizabeth. I will be adding Elizabeth to the live here shortly. I'm super excited because we're going to be talking about how spirituality can infuse into entrepreneurship, what that means. Elizabeth is going to share a little bit about her journey. She also is an expert and speaks on Feng Shui, which I'm really excited to have this conversation. So let me add Elizabeth into the conversation. One second.
Hi,
Hey, hi Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm good. That was the easiest joining live I've ever experienced.
Yay! We love easy.
We love easy. How are
How are
you?
you?
I'm good. I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing well. Here in Minnesota, the weather is starting to warm up. So, talk about feng shui and how environment makes a difference. We had some rainy, gloomy days, and now it's been sunshine. So, it does wonders, right, for the psyche.
Mm. And we need all elements, right? We need to make it in balance and appreciate the contrast.
Yes, yes. And you beautifully articulate that. I also do love thunderstorms and a good rainstorm. But it's like after 5 consecutive days of it, you're like, okay, where's the sunshine?
That part. I know I talked to my parents last night. They're in Virginia and they're
Oh,
experiencing like a hurricane. And I remember as a kid growing up, like, oh man, nothing was more exciting than a hurricane coming. Like you would get all the snacks and charge up the generator and just like wait for the storm. And living in LA, we don't have that.
no, no. No, you guys are working with a different element. Were you near or impacted by the fires in LA? I mean, that's like a whole kind of side combo, but are you okay?
Yeah, yeah. I think if you're in LA, it was impossible not to be impacted somehow. I luckily wasn't impacted personally, but just, yeah, no, so many people that were, and we are still rebuilding here. I feel it is a side topic, but I appreciate you asking because it kind of reminds me, when we go through grief, it's like we forget to check in of like, how are you doing with
Yes,
that? Especially with people passing, or it's like if it's not in the news headline, we forget to
that's what I was just
check
gonna say.
in.
Yeah, if it feels like the cycle has passed, it's like, well, no, like people are still, again, here in Minnesota, it's not like I'm noticing the impacts, but I know that people are still dealing with that. And I do think it's kind of relevant just as we talk about the environment and the elements and how there's this appreciation that we can have for them, but also like nature is a force of its own, right? Like nobody can control that. Obviously there are things we can do that can support the environment and Mother Earth and things like that. But yeah.
I Yes, I think we're appreciating the elements, especially the element of fire, and being so deep in this work. Um, it really did help me move through that time with a deeper reverence of, not just earth, but the fire that creates earth. And really, when
Yeah.
you think about the wood feeding the fire and the fire building the permeable layers of earth, not exactly what we want, obviously, with
Right.
chemicals and the whole environmental conversation. But yeah, trusting Mother Earth and that she's doing what she's doing. And I think, in the spirit of just like, yeah, we can dive in, but
I
I
was
think
just gonna
more
say
connected.
we're like dancing around, but first, Elizabeth, if you don't mind, before we go like deep into some spirituality, and I just love to learn more about your journey, would you introduce yourself to those listening to this live, either live or the replay? Share a little bit more about you, and also like what you share. Obviously, we're touching upon some things that you share in your business as well. So, would you share more?
Absolutely. Yeah, and just to finish that, it's really our connection to nature that heals. And so as it relates to me, I feel very much of my healing journey and what I'm now offering. As we know, as entrepreneurs, it's often alchemizing our own medicine and serving it out into the
Yeah.
world. And feng shui has supported me. So has the other tools that I offer in terms of breath work and really like deep holistic coaching containers that help people professionally pivot or reinvent themselves, especially after a divorce or a breakup or feeling just stuck and stagnant. For me personally, I was stuck in a job that was my dream job that was not my dream.
Mm.
And I could not get out of those golden handcuffs as a coach as well, which was such a like, wow, what kind of coach am I if I can't coach myself out of this? And so I had to get out of the mind, and I
Yes.
had to get out of the programs and the being told what to do and tap deeply into my own intuition, which looked like doing morning pages every morning and like really getting into my soul's truth and using tools like Feng Shui to shift the change that I couldn't shift in my mind. I couldn't like talk myself into the scary thing. I had to
Yeah.
really deepen my practice, which was really deepening my consciousness so my circumstances could change.
Yes. Elizabeth, I love that, like, you beautifully just articulated there not only what you share and do in your business, and also just like how it ties neatly into your own story, like how you've had to, like, right, so many of us, like you mentioned, what we're doing is because we've had to take our own medicine. We like, right, like, I love teaching women how to use, upgrade their subconscious mind, do past life healing to awaken to their full intuitive self, but it's because I had to go through that transformation myself, along with adding in other tools. And the reason why, so I'm really excited to have Elizabeth on today, because she's also going to be featured as a guest speaker in the Awakened Souls membership. And so inside the membership, it's really for individuals who you are deepening this connection to your higher self, to your soul self. And it's not about just knowing more, right? As human beings, we're like, oh, well, tell me all the things, and I want to know all this cool spirituality stuff, which we talk about, but it's also about deepening your practices. And Elizabeth mentioned she does morning pages as a way to like deepen her soul connection. And we're also going to talk about Feng Shui and how your environment plays into that, but she'll also be a featured guest speaker. I'm looking at the date here, May 15th, for those that might be interested in going deeper with her after our conversation today. I can't wait for that. So Elizabeth, would you mind sharing, what are some spiritual practices as an entrepreneur that have been very helpful for you? And like, how would you describe, how has your deepening connection to your own spirituality supported you, in businesshood, in your journey in general?
Yes, I felt spirit tell me early on. The early days when I was like talking back, spirit said, nothing is more important than your practices. And to me, I was like, spirit, how's my practices going to pay my rent? Like I'm do the math for me. And there was just this like trusting, because what spirit was guiding me towards is we have to go within. I'm the type of entrepreneur, I think most entrepreneurs are. I don't do well with being told what to do. I never have.
Right.
And I think that's what makes us primed. It's who we are to be able to trust our intuition. And to be able to trust your intuition, you have to first get to know and like befriend and work with and understand like what is a yes, what is a ooh, I don't feel right, and how many times you're going to not trust that not feeling right. And so for me, the practices really, Kundalini was one of the most
Mm.
instrumental. Doing 40-day sits as well. I was also I'm noticing, because I do flow Feng Shui of wind and water, that is the energy of, I believe, my soul. But practices like Zen and practices like a 40-day Kundalini sit that have that masculine container, that commitment,
Okay.
really serves my flow queen energy
Yes.
well. And so I think those containers, and just the commitment and the devotion, I find, is that energy that we're putting out that comes back in terms of deepening our awareness. But like I mentioned, morning pages is a non-negotiable every morning. And it's not journaling, it's stream of
That's
consciousness writing.
Okay, that's what I was just going to ask. So it's interesting. I've been in some different containers, Elizabeth. So if you would go deeper into like, what is morning pages and what is that method? Because I know when I was taking my Akashic Records certification, my mentor, Amy Robeson, would call it, like, we would do uncensored journaling. That was part of the practice of like, I mean, not only initially you're just kind of getting out some of those surface layer thoughts, right? Like kind of just getting out some things, but then we were like, she kind of prompted us into this Q&A style, almost back and forth, connecting with source and higher self and guides of like, ask a question and then you don't think about it. You just write it down. And, initially, it was just called uncensored journaling. And initially it felt like, am I just making this up? But I soon began to realize like, wow, no, there's something to this. So can you share a little bit about artist pages or what that is?
Sure. The morning pages comes
Or
from the
morning
artist
pages.
way. Yeah,
Okay, yes.
yeah. And it's less scripted. It's less prompted. It's very much working with what's here. And I see it as a moving meditation. In meditation when your thoughts are like, and you just return to the breath, thoughts. And I see it as like it's on the paper. It's like thoughts
Mm.
are here and I get to witness those
I get to
thoughts.
observe.
And what happens is 3 pages is really important because usually the first page and a half, I like to say it's like taking out the trash, like the to-dos, I can't believe she said that, and just the junk. And then once the junk is out and we've cleared that, we have a clear channel for spirit to come through. And then we start hearing like our soul's truths, or spirit speaking to me that time that I shared of like, nothing is more important than your practices. And this is the only thing that's going to get you where you want to go.
Yes,
And so you start to get those. And to me, coming from corporate and having, start like stand-ups, daily stand-ups, it became like, oh, this is my daily stand-up with God. Like,
oh,
these are my instructions. This is my, don't do that. Like, do this, call this person. Trust me, girl. Like, I got you. And it just became a magical unfolding when I really committed to it. And also the power of
I
morning
love
pages.
that.
When you start seeing the same thing every day in terms of like the trash, you start really taking action of like, I can't keep taking out the same trash bag. Like something has to change. And so
Yeah,
I
there's
think
like a pattern
also,
here. There's like a belief here.
yeah, there's a pattern, there's a belief,
Yeah,
or I need to say something, or I need to never do that again. Or, it's like the boundaries
yeah,
that also comes into play with Feng Shui, was such a supportive tool with boundaries for me in terms of like really protecting our our field
yeah,
so that we can really be discerning of, yeah, what gets to come in, and what is mirroring to us our lack versus our abundance, or our beliefs.
yeah,
And so I think
yes.
there is just a showing up every day and meeting yourself and seeing what's on those pages and getting to witness it, but connected to everything and attached to nothing. And you don't go back and read it or ruminate it. You really see it as like, I'm
It's just,
just, yeah,
yep, getting it out. I'm connecting.
yes.
I love that.
And
And
listening.
actually, I really love Elizabeth. There's so many like good nuggets in there, but I do want to pull out because I tend to work with a lot of like type A high achievers who are like, starting to get into their spirituality, getting spiritually curious. And I do think it is helpful. So I don't come from per se corporate. I come from healthcare, but similar to healthcare had certain rhythms and routines. Like every day, right? I would look at my caseload. I would read kind of, figure out what's my game plan for the day. And I like how you said too, coming from corporate, it helped to kind of tie or link this habit or behavior to something that you'd already done. And I do think that that helps for if you're coming from something that's kind of been more strategy and rhythmical focused. It's like, okay, this is very similar to me just doing like my morning to-do list, but it's deeper than that. It's deeper, and it's this connection to source. And I do think oftentimes people think like, is intuition or a spirituality, is it just a trend? Is it just a fad? Is it just a one and done thing? And it's like, no, it's a life practice. It's like once you begin to infuse it, it just becomes a bigger position in your life and in your business. You're getting that soul led direction each morning, which is beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. And I have like a saying, like if it hasn't been around for 4,000 years, like I don't trust it. And so there is like also just when you speak of spirituality as a fad, I think it's like, and going back to Feng Shui and also just our practices in the morning. I mean, these are what we've been doing for the beginning of time, when we used to live off the land and be in harmony with the rhythms and the nature and the stillness in the morning, Kundalini. We start at that time in the morning because it is the most available to connect.
Mm,
And this isn't a fad. These
right.
are, yeah, I
Yeah.
think sometimes that's helpful of like, let's just extend our timeline. Like
Agreed.
your pseudoscience.
Now, I do want to get into feng shui because I just think you and I were even chatting. I'm going to move my like little sparkling water there. It keeps wiggling. Um, I just think there's different, right? There's a lot out there about feng shui, what that means. I think if you, as you mentioned when you and I were talking to set up this workshop that's going to be happening inside the membership, you were like, oh, I do this way, or, I practice this practice. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know there were differences. So will you share a little bit more? Because for someone like me, I was like, is it just crystals? Does that mean I add crystals to things? Because that's something that I did early on was I did add crystals around the house. But can you give us more, like, what is the depth of feng shui and how you practice it?
Absolutely. Yes. And crystals always, I think more than anything, because there are many lineages of feng shui. There's eight mansions, there's black hat, there's Tibetan Buddhism, there's just,
Different ways to practice.
yeah, there's different schools and there's different
Okay.
lineages. And so just starting with that, I think that's helpful to understand, and why I experienced getting lost on YouTube University when I was new into just the resonance of this work, and realizing I've been doing it since I was a child, like just not knowing, but I was
Oh.
really working with, especially personal reinvention. Sometimes I share the story of going from elementary school to middle school. I was picked on a lot for my weight in elementary school. They called me Shanmu when I got on the bus, and my half brother moved to college when I was going into middle school. So I was like, Mom, I'm going to take his room, and I like rearranged my stuff, and I told myself, because it's also just working with the unconscious and what's being mirrored back to you.
Yes.
And I told myself, like, I'm going to reinvent this. I'm going to like step on the bus with different energy. And it worked. And so I think it's like we also are just intuitively maybe doing feng shui and not even knowing it, in terms
Yes.
of the stagnation that we might feel. In feng shui, they say the home is a body that holds the body. And
Mm.
so when you really think about it as it's a physical body that's holding your body. And just like traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, if you're familiar with that, we're working with the same elements, and we're also working with major points. And so the one thing that all lineages of feng shui have in common
Yeah.
is the directions and the elements. And I also, because I studied with eight mansions, so I had to pick one teacher and go deep because I was getting lost in the
Right.
sauce.
Like kind of a little bit here and there. You're like, let's go depth. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes they can contradict each other as well. And so in the eight mansions lineage, you use your birthday, which is called the Gua number. And so
Oh.
I use that, to me felt a little more personal than just laying like a map over a
Yeah.
space. And so
That's kind of the method I learned in a course that I took. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the like a very common Western method.
Okay.
And I love the not or personability, or like
Yes.
making it personal,
Yeah.
because you also, similar to astrology, you have different like archetypes, and you can kind of start to work with that. And also based on your archetype, you have an element that's associated with it. So when we're thinking of designing your space, a space that has all five elements represented allows the nervous system to drop. But then also understanding what your element is, we can like design that element, like design your space with that as the
Oh.
leading element, which gets really creative and fun just from like like a design perspective, but
Yeah.
also really like using it like atomic habits, like also really doing it like I did, going from elementary to middle school, not even knowing, as like really intentionally moving this energy and working with the rebalancing
Yep.
with an intention in mind, because that's also working with your unconscious mind. And so once we have your energy directions, then you have supportive directions that we can also activate. And yeah, there's so much more in terms
I
of
love
how
that.
you
Again,
can.
and if you want to go in depth with this, because I'm pretty sure I could ask you like a million questions, Elizabeth, which I'm really excited that Elizabeth is going to be inside the Awakened Soul membership, where we're going to go a little bit deeper into how individuals inside the membership can really curate and be mindful and intentional. And I think if you're watching this live, what you're going to get from Elizabeth and I is really intention. Intention matters. And I think as CEOs, entrepreneurs, or if you're still working in corporate or whatnot, we can really get wrapped up in to-dos, tasks, checking off boxes. But it's like, being a human being is also being a soul. And as a soul, we connect deeply to these practices that can help guide our day, that can help set the tone for the day. And the environment that we're in matters, you know, like if I'm constantly in an environment that I'm like, oh, I hate that thing over there or whatever that is, like that's not going to make me feel good. That's going to always maybe reinforce a belief of I'm messy or this sucks or whatever. So again, like intention with your environment, intention with your daily practices, it does matter. Whether you're a CEO, an entrepreneur, a leader, it really sets the tone. Yeah.
It absolutely does, especially as we're moving. I see as a human species, or if we want to talk leadership development, we're moving past what the five senses and what is being said, and we're moving into what is felt. And I think, threading in feng shui is deeply felt, and you
Mm.
but how you feel once you work with that energy is also felt. And you want to talk about presence, or really like owning the words that you say, but how you're making people feel, I think is also just what happens when we start again like refining our container and our what we actually know we don't like, but it's just running in our background, and we haven't taken out that trash or taken that to the goodwill as a symbol to both our
Mm.
universe, like not anymore, in terms of like how we continue to rise and ascend.
Yes. It even, when you were saying that, Elizabeth, too, it even reminds me of that simple practice of getting out some of those clothes that don't fit, or getting out I've got a 6-year old, getting out the things that doesn't fit him anymore. When we do those acts of like little spring cleaning, or it's just a cleaning, and we bring it to the Goodwill. It's like it's a symbolic of like, I'm letting go. I'm done with that. I don't need that. And I also think it helps us as humans remember at the end of the day, we're souls. We don't take any of the stuff with us. So it's like so many people, I don't know, I just see some of the older generations, like they're so tied to stuff sometimes, and I know it's hard to sometimes let go of things, or when you have to downsize your home. I'm just thinking because I had grandparents who recently passed, and my mom was going through all their stuff. And I just think like it's also this embodiment of a practice though, of like we don't bring stuff with us. And so it's a healthy practice to get into of letting go of things, letting go of mind trash. Like this practice of letting go is part of the human and soul experience. So I just love that, like even practicing it in our environment is a beautiful way to remember that.
Absolutely. And even building on that, and how, when I work with people, it's very holistic and integrated. And when we get to remember that, what you just mentioned, which is so powerful, of like, really, what are we taking with us? And then I think we get to get a little more in alignment of our values and our professions and
Mm.
what we're doing with our
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
knowing we're not taking any of this stuff with us. And the only thing that we're taking with us is our soul and
Yeah.
in essence. And so really working on that in itself brings so many priorities to the surface, that we get to live a life that is more aligned
Mm.
with our soul's knowing of what it's here to do.
Mm. It's such deep work, Elizabeth. Again, I think we could talk for days, but would you share how can people, if people are like, oh my gosh, this sounds so interesting, I'd love to learn more, just how can people, what's the best way to connect with you? Do you have any upcoming offers, or just ways that people can get into your world?
Absolutely. I have, let's see, I am offering well, first, if people are interested in their GWA number, they can go on my website and fill out a form,
Okay.
and I'm happy to share it with them. And I'll also share with you your elements. So you can just, it's also whenever I share it, normally people, like, for example, I'm fire, and being able to I take showers at night to calm down. It's just like,
Mm. I feel like I'm probably fire too, but I'm now really curious to check.
yeah. And I'm doing a fun like overlap with an astrologer friend of the elements in feng shui, and then because I'm an air sign and astrology and anyways, there's a whole like
Oh
mad
God,
scientist mastermind, but that's not
I'm
answering your
excited.
question. And I have an artist way container that I just completed. I've been doing artist ways 12-week journeys, and I'm trying something new. as entrepreneurs that we do. And it's a monthly container. So I noticed that
Ooh.
on a chapter just felt like we were rushing and there was so much more there. So I wanted to slow it down. I feel like also all of our nervous systems could just benefit from not rushing through things and really working on the integration and embodiment of the beautiful work that the Artist Way is, that completely changed my life and put me on this path. So I always want to, yeah, so I'm offering that this month. We're starting with safety. Um,
Oh, I love
yeah,
that one. That's good.
and then, yeah, I teach breath work here in LA. So I'm excited.
Oh,
New studio open called Lotus Moon, which I see is on the live. So
yay.
that's a new studio in LA that I'll be teaching at. So yeah, all my offerings for breathwork and workshops. I do some Feng Shui workshops around LA as well, which I'll start doing more virtual, but those
Yay.
are all some.
I'm so excited. So would the best place would be to go perhaps to your link tree of your Instagram to find out more and catch some of those links?
That's a perfect way to say it. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm so excited. And also, if just this topic of feng shui really sparks your interest, feel free to message me about the Awakened Soul membership. I'm really excited to be doing more with that this summer and having different guest speakers in, because spirituality and intuition, this topic, this what it all encompasses, is really about just awakening as a soul. And there's so many different things that you might hear like feng shui and you lean in, and that might be that nudge of like, wow, I might like want to go deeper on this topic. And so if you want to go deeper, if you want to join us, you can also DM me on my Instagram page. Just send me a DM membership and I can send you more details, because Elizabeth's workshop is coming up on May 15th, which I'm really excited about. So Elizabeth, thank you so much. It's been a joy chatting with you, and I can't wait to connect with you inside the membership too.
Sorry, a call came in. You said, say it again.
You're good. I said it's been a joy to connect with you, and I can't wait to see you in the membership later this month.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye, Elizabeth.
Bye.